The rain had been falling for hours, a heavy curtain that blurred streetlights into trembling halos. At the edge of the city, where the bus line thinned into darkness, a single shelter stood, glass walls streaked with water, a flickering light above. He was alone, or so he thought. Adnan pulled his jacket tighter, shoes soaked through. His last bus was late and the storm seemed endless. The timetable pinned to the shelter was warped from the damp, but the glowing digital screen above the bench kept shifting. 12:15, while 30:01 row. Each time he blinked, the numbers jumped. Behind him, water pooled and rippled. Though there was no wind, he exhaled, steadying himself. That was when a voice whispered, close enough to fog the glass beside his ear. "It doesn't stop for the living anymore." Adnan spun. The bench was empty. Only his reflection stared back, pale and trembling, as the timetable clicked again. 4:15, the bus was coming. But who else was waiting? Adnan hated late shifts. His office, a gray tower swallowed by rain, kept him chained until after midnight, long past when the roads emptied. Tonight, the storm had drowned the city. Water rushed along gutters, neon lights drowned in rippling reflections. He cursed himself for not calling a cab, but fares tripled in weather like this. The bus stop sat on the city's edge, beyond rows of shuttered shops. The only sound was the steady drumming of rain on the shelter roof. He sat, dripping, staring at the warped paper timetable. The digital one above the bench flickered again. 1:30. It couldn't be right. Adnan rubbed his temples, glancing at his phone. No signal. Battery at 5%. He put it away quickly. When he looked up, the shelter wasn't empty anymore. A man sat at the far end of the bench, thin, soaked, his clothes clinging. His hair dripped in sheets. Adnan startled. He hadn't heard anyone arrive. "Crazy weather," Adnan said, forcing small talk. His voice was too loud, bouncing against the glass. The man didn't look at him. His head tilted down, water trailing off his chin. Then, softly, as though speaking to himself, he murmured, "It doesn't stop for the living anymore." Adnan froze. "What?" The man finally turned. His eyes were pale, cloudy, as if filmed over. His lips barely moved. "The last bus. You'll see." A chill sliced through Adnan, deeper than the rain. He swallowed hard. Maybe the guy was drunk, homeless. He looked down at his lap, wishing his bus would arrive. Silence stretched. The rain seemed to pound louder. When Adnan looked up again, the man was gone. Only water dripped from the bench where he'd sat. The next hour was slow torture. The timetable flickered every few minutes, shifting later and later. 45, EO2 Biru, EO2.15. Adnan paced inside the shelter, muttering, "This is insane. Where's the damn bus?" His reflection in the rain-streaked glass looked blurred, strangely distorted. His mouth moved half a second late. He turned sharply away. Through the storm, headlights glowed in the distance. Relief surged, until they swerved and vanished down another road. Not the bus. Thunder rolled. Behind him, the timetable paper crinkled. He glanced. The ink ran in wet streaks, but he could still make out some writing. Names. Dozens of them, scrawled in cramped letters. They weren't routes. They were passenger lists. His own name was at the bottom. Adnan staggered back, heart racing. His breath clouded the glass. Outside, the street was deserted, except for a woman standing at the crosswalk. She wore a long coat, hair plastered to her face by rain. She didn't move, didn't look at him. He blinked. She was gone. The storm roared, swallowing sound. When the shelter light flickered, Adnan saw them. Shapes seated inside, across from him. A row of drenched passengers, slumped and unmoving. Their heads bowed, water dripping steadily to the floor. His breath caught. He blinked again. Empty. "No," Adnan whispered. He pressed his palms to his face, shuddering. "Just tired. Just tired." But the whisper returned, close as breath. "It doesn't stop for the living anymore." He fled into the rain. The streets stretched endlessly, slick and shining. But no taxis passed. No shops lit. Every window he ran past was dark, blind. He circled back, somehow, without realizing. The shelter loomed again. Adnan staggered under its roof, dripping. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He yanked it out. The screen glowed, cracked with static. A message blinked across it. The battery died instantly. He slumped on the bench, head in his hands. The shelter glass blurred, and in the reflection behind him, someone sat. Slowly, Adnan raised his eyes. It was the pale man again. But this time, his lips moved clearly. "You shouldn't have stayed." Headlights cut through the storm. Adnan's stomach dropped. The bus. Finally the bus. He leapt up, waving. The vehicle pulled in with a hiss, doors creaking open. Inside, dim yellow lights, rows of seats. Relief flooded him. He stepped forward, then froze. Every seat was filled. Passengers slumped, motionless. Their heads lolled against windows. Clothes soaked, water dripping down the aisle. Not one of them moved. Adnan's chest tightened. "What?" The driver turned slowly. Where a face should have been, there was only pale blur, a smear of flesh, no eyes, no mouth. Yet it watched him. The whisper was everywhere now, flooding the shelter, the rain, the air itself. It doesn't stop for the living anymore. The doors wheezed. Waiting. Adnan stumbled back, shaking his head. No, I'm not getting on." The faceless driver tilted its head. Slowly, a hand reached for the lever. The doors began to close, and from the last row, one slumped figure lifted its head. Its cloudy eyes stared straight at him. It was his reflection. Adnan screamed. He stumbled into the street, blinded by rain. The bus roared, headlights burning, and then it was gone, swallowed by the storm, vanishing down a road that wasn't there before. Silence. The shelter flickered back to emptiness. Dawn came gray and heavy. Rain slowed to a mist. A passerby, a delivery man biking through puddles, found the bus stop deserted. On the bench, a leather bag sat, drenched, straps torn. Inside, a phone dead. Wallet, ID card. The timetable above the bench blinked once, then froze on a single word. The delivery man shivered, adjusting his hood. He swore he heard voices in the fading rain, whispers, names. The bag lay forgotten as the city woke. Traffic resuming, people rushing past the stop without looking. By nightfall, when the storm returned, the shelter's glass reflected a new figure sitting on the bench, slumped, dripping, waiting for the bus. Drip, drip, drip. Sarah woke to the sound of water tapping against her pillow. For a moment, half asleep, she thought the roof was leaking. But when she reached up, her fingers found nothing. The ceiling above was dry, still. Cold droplets slid across her cheek. She sat up, startled, and flicked on the bedside lamp. Her heart clenched. A small pool of water gleamed on the bedspread beside her, dark, widening with each drop that fell. But the ceiling was sealed. No cracks, no stains. She swung her legs out of bed, stepping onto the carpet. It squished. The floor was wet. Sarah staggered back, pulse racing. She had mopped this very room before sleeping, everything neat, spotless. She remembered checking the windows, locking them tight against the storm outside. Now, the sound of rain was everywhere, not outside, but inside the walls, and under the steady dripping. She thought she heard something else, a voice, a man's voice, faint and hollow, bubbling as though rising through water. Sarah, come back down. Her blood ran cold. That voice was impossible. Her husband had drowned 3 years ago. Sarah moved through the dark house with trembling steps, clutching her robe around her. Every window rattled from the storm. Rain poured against the pane so hard it blurred the world outside into shifting gray. But the water wasn't just outside. It streaked the wallpaper. It seeped from the edges of photographs. It bubbled faintly from the floorboards. She pressed her palms to her ears, whispering, "Not real. Just the storm. Just my head." The house creaked in answer. It was the home she had abandoned years ago. The house she had shared with him. After his accident, she had fled, unable to stand the echo of his absence. The place had been sold, written off as condemned after the river swelled and swallowed half its foundation. Yet here she was again. Months ago, she had seen the listing reappear. Cheap, too cheap. A chance to start over, she had thought. To prove the past didn't own her, but tonight, in the storm, the past was everywhere. The phone rang, startling her. She ran to it, breathless. "Hello?" Static hissed. Then a voice. Low, urgent, unfamiliar. "Get out." Sarah gripped the receiver. "Who is this?" The voice cracked with static. "That house? It sank years ago." The line went dead. Her hands shook as she set the phone down. Water slid down the receiver and onto the table. By morning, the storm had not broken. The entire house smelled damp, sour. Sarah kept mopping, ringing, mopping again. Every time she cleared one puddle, another appeared. She tried to rationalize. Pipes, plumbing, old wood shifting, but the house disagreed. Mirrors fogged even without heat. Family portraits along the stairwell bled water, streaking faces into smears. In the kitchen, the faucet dripped, even when she turned the knobs tight. She unplugged the phone, but at night it still rang, shrill in the dark. She stopped answering. On the third night, she dreamed of him, her husband Imran, rising from the riverbank. His clothes clung dark to his frame, face pale, lips blue. He reached for her, whispering through gurgling breath, "Stay." She woke in a sweat, the bed damp as though she'd been submerged. Sarah called a neighbor, desperate for company. An older woman, Mrs. Rahman, agreed to come check, but when she arrived, her expression shifted the moment she crossed the threshold. "Why did you return here?" The woman whispered. Sarah's voice cracked. "It's my house. I needed—" "No, this isn't your house." "Not anymore." Water dripped steadily from the ceiling above them, pattering onto the floor. The old woman shook her head, stepping back. "Leave, child, before it keeps you too." And then she was gone, umbrella snapping open as she fled into the rain, alone again. Sarah felt the weight of silence press in, only it wasn't silence. Voices whispered through the pipes, murmuring in tones she almost recognized. Friends, family, neighbors. Some long dead, some very much alive, all calling her name, Sarah. "Sarah, come down." The basement door rattled. She hadn't opened it since moving back. She knew what lay below. The waterlogged ruin of the foundation. The place the river had claimed. Her chest tightened. She locked the door. But that night, the dripping grew louder. The storm swelled into a roar. Wind lashed, windows rattled, rain hammered the roof like fists. Sarah woke to find the floor of her bedroom slick with water. It lapped against her ankles as she stood. The house was flooding from within. She splashed into the hallway. Water poured down the stairs in steady sheets, gushing from unseen cracks. The air was thick, humid, suffocating. "Stop!" she screamed, though at what, she didn't know. From below, the basement door slammed open. Dark water rushed upward, swallowing the first steps. And from it, a shape emerged, Imran, or what was left of him. His skin bloated, pale. His eyes clouded. His mouth opened, spilling water as he whispered, "Stay with me." Sarah staggered back, shaking. "No, you're dead." "You drowned." He reached for her, water streaming from his fingertips. "Not without you." The flood rose fast, waist-deep then higher. She fought through it, pushing toward the front door. Her hands fumbled at the lock, slick with water. Behind her, his voice gurgled closer. "Sarah." "Please." She tore the door open. A wall of storm raged outside, but no street, no neighbor's house, only endless water stretching into darkness. She screamed. The house groaned, walls trembling. Windows shattered, rain and river alike crashing inward. The last thing she saw before the water swallowed her was Imran's hand closing around her wrist, pulling her under. When dawn came, the storm eased. From the outside, the house stood silent. Perfectly dry. No broken windows, no water stains. Just another abandoned property on a drowned street. Inside, the floors were spotless. The furniture neatly arranged. The air was still. But in the river behind the house, a body drifted gently downstream. Pale, silent. On its hand, a wedding ring gleamed faintly in the gray light. By evening, the real estate listing would appear again. The price would drop, cheap enough to tempt another soul. And when the next storm rolled in, the walls would whisper once more. The first ring came just after midnight. Imtiaz nearly dropped his thermos. He wasn't expecting a call. Nobody ever called the security office. The rain outside was hammering hard against the glass walls of the lobby, blurring the parking lot into shifting pools of silver. He lifted the receiver. "Hello?" "Static," he frowned. The line hissed, cracked, and under it came a sound that froze him in place. Sobbing. A wet, uneven sob. Faint but unmistakable. "Who is this?" Imtiaz demanded, forcing strength into his voice. No answer. Only the faint sobbing, bubbling like it came from underwater. Then, click. The line went dead. Imtiaz slowly set the receiver down. His pulse hammered. He turned to glance at the empty parking lot. The rain streamed down in sheets. But for the briefest moment, under the glow of a broken lamppost, he thought he saw someone standing there, drenched, unmoving, watching. Then the lightning flashed, and the lot was empty again. The phone rang a second time. Imtiaz hated storms. They reminded him of that night, years ago, when his best friend Nadim had slipped into the swollen canal. The rain had been merciless, the water fast. Imtiaz still remembered standing frozen on the bank, unable to move, unable to jump. Nadim's face vanishing beneath the surface. He had never forgiven himself. Tonight he sat alone in the corporate lobby he guarded. The building was dark above him, all offices empty. His only company was the storm and the hum of the fluorescent lights. When the phone rang again, he answered faster. "Hello? Who is this?" Static hissed. Then the faint sobs again. Imtiaz gritted his teeth. "Stop calling. This line is for emergencies only." The sobbing shifted, became words garbled by static. "Imtiaz." He froze. The line crackled, then went dead. His name. It had said his name. He stood, hands trembling, staring at the darkened monitors showing the building's security feeds. Each camera flickered with rain distortion, static lines across the image. The empty parking lot, the locked doors, the silent elevators. But on one feed, the east entrance, a shadow shifted. For a heartbeat, Imtiaz saw a figure there, drenched, unmoving. The phone rang again. He refused to answer. Let it ring, shrill and endless. But when it finally stopped, the silence was worse. Water dripped somewhere in the office. Imtiaz checked the ceiling, the corners. No leak. Still, the sound persisted. Drip, drip, drip. On the monitors, shapes began to appear. At first, he thought it was rain distortion. But no. In the parking lot camera, pale figures walked slowly between the cars. Their clothes hung heavy, soaked. Their faces were gray, blurred. Imtiaz lurched back from the screens. No, this isn't real. The phone rang again. Against his own will, he picked it up. Imtiaz, the voice was clearer now. A man's voice, warped but familiar. His chest seized. Nadim, silence. Then, through gurgling breaths, "You should have saved me." The line cut. Imtiaz's breath came hard, ragged. He slammed the phone down. The monitors crackled again. On one feed, the lobby, his lobby right now, showed a drenched figure standing at the reception desk. But when he looked up, nothing. The phone rang. Over the next hour, the calls grew constant. Each time the voice said more. "You left me." The water was so cold. "I waited for you." Imtiaz covered his ears, rocking in the chair. Not real, not real. I tried to help, but deep inside he knew the truth. He hadn't tried. He had frozen, watched his best friend drown, and now, in every screen, water streaked down as though the cameras themselves were submerged. At 3:00 a.m., the power went out. The lobby plunged into darkness. Only lightning lit the glass walls, illuminating sheets of rain. For brief flashes, Imtiaz saw shapes moving outside. Dozens of figures, drenched and pale, all standing, all watching. The phone rang in the dark. He snatched it up, desperate, furious. "Stop, leave me alone!" The voice answered, calm now. "I can't, you owe me." Thunder shook the glass. Imtiaz clutched the phone, whispering, "Nadim, I'm sorry. I was scared. I should have..." The line hissed, filling with wet breath. "You should have saved me." Lightning flared. This time, a drenched figure stood inside the lobby. Just a few feet away, phone still pressed to its ear. Water streamed from its skin, pooling on the marble floor. Its cloudy eyes fixed on him. Imtiaz stumbled back, dropping the receiver. No, you're not real." The figure's lips parted, spilling water as it whispered, "Come with me." The front doors burst open. A flood of rain surged inside, sweeping Imtiaz off his feet. He screamed, clawing at the desk, at the chairs. The water dragged him toward the doors, toward the storm, toward the waiting drowned. The last thing he saw before the current pulled him under was the pale figure reaching out, hand closing around his wrist, mourning. The storm had passed. The lobby stood silent, floors gleaming as though freshly polished. No sign of flooding, no broken doors. When the next shift arrived, they found the security desk empty. The phone lay off the hook. water dripping steadily from its receiver. In the parking lot, 2 sets of wet footprints led away from the building, but only one set returned.